Buying a home used to feel like a clear milestone. You worked, you saved, you upgraded your life step by step, and eventually you got the keys to a place that felt like stability. But in 2026, something about that path feels broken. People are earning more than they did a few years ago. They're doing what they're supposed to do financially, and yet homeownership still feels strangely out of reach. Not impossible on paper, but heavy, uncomfortable, and in many cases, unrealistic. A big part of that feeling starts with mortgage rates. Sitting in the mid 6% range, they don't sound extreme at first, but when you actually run the numbers, they completely change the experience of buying a home. A house that might have felt manageable just a few years ago suddenly comes with a monthly payment that feels like a second rent, except this time it's locking you in for decades. Even people with solid incomes are looking at those payments and thinking, this doesn't feel right. And that's where the confusion begins. Because logically, if your income has gone up and you've been financially responsible, you should be closer to owning a home, not further away. But emotionally, it feels like the finish line keeps moving. Every time you save more, prices adjust. Every time you think you're ready, the numbers don't quite work. What's really happening here is a mix of pressure from multiple directions at once. Home prices didn't reset in a meaningful way after the rapid increases of the past few years. In many areas, they're still elevated, even if growth has slowed. At the same time, higher interest rates have quietly amplified the cost of those already expensive homes. It's not just that homes are pricey, it's that the cost of financing them has become significantly more expensive too. That combination creates a strange effect. You're not just paying more for the house, you're paying more for the money you use to buy the house. And over time, that difference becomes massive. A slightly higher rate can translate into hundreds or even thousands more per month, and tens or hundreds of thousands more over the life of the loan. That's the kind of math that makes people pause, even if they technically qualify. But the financial side is only part of the story. There's also a psychological shift happening. For a long time, owning a home was seen as a default good decision. It symbolized progress, security, and adulthood. Now, people are starting to question that assumption, not because they don't want a home, but because the cost of getting one feels out of proportion to the benefit. When your monthly payment is pushing the limits of your budget, homeownership stops feeling like stability and starts feeling like pressure. You're not just buying a home, you're buying a long-term financial obligation that leaves very little room for error. And in a world where job security, healthcare costs, and everyday expenses already feel uncertain, that kind of commitment feels heavier than it used to. This is why even high earners are hesitating. On paper, they can afford the home, but in practice, it means sacrificing flexibility, delaying other goals, and taking on a level of financial tightness that doesn't feel comfortable. It's not just about whether you can make the payment, it's about how your life feels after you make it. Another layer to this is lifestyle inflation, which quietly works against a lot of people. As incomes rise, so do expectations. Rent, subscriptions, travel, daily spending, it all expands over time. So even when someone is earning more, their financial breathing room doesn't necessarily improve. And when it comes time to save for a down payment or handle a higher mortgage, it suddenly feels like there's less margin than expected. Then there's the down payment itself, which has become a major barrier. Saving tens of thousands of dollars while also managing higher rent, higher living costs, and everyday expenses is not easy. For many people, it feels like trying to fill a bucket with a slow leak. Progress happens, but it's slower than it should be, and often frustrating. All of this creates a situation where homeownership isn't just financially challenging, it's mentally exhausting. People aren't just asking, can I afford this? They're asking, should I even do this right now? And that's a very different kind of question. The truth is, the housing market in 2026 is not designed for comfort. It's designed for trade-offs. If you want to buy, you might need to accept a higher monthly payment, a smaller home, a different location, or a longer timeline. There's no perfect option, only choices with different types of compromises. And that's where a shift in mindset becomes important.
Instead of treating homeownership as a race or a deadline, it helps to see it as a decision that should actually fit your life, not just your expectations. Just because something was considered the right move before doesn't mean it's the right move for you right now. For some people, waiting is not a failure, it's a strategy. It gives you time to build stronger savings, reduce debt, and create more flexibility in your finances. It also allows you to make a decision from a position of strength rather than pressure. And in a market like this, that difference matters. For others, buying may still make sense, but only if it doesn't stretch your finances to the point where your life feels restricted. A home should support your life, not control it. If the numbers leave you constantly stressed, it's worth stepping back and reassessing. There is also a broader reality to accept. Affordability has changed. The idea of what a normal home costs, what a comfortable payment looks like, and how long it takes to get there, all of that has shifted. Holding on to outdated expectations can make the current market feel even more frustrating than it already is. What actually helps is adjusting your approach, focusing on what you can control, your savings rate, your spending habits, your financial priorities, creates a sense of progress even when the market feels unpredictable. It brings the focus back to your personal situation instead of constantly reacting to external conditions. Because at the end of the day, the reason home ownership feels out of reach in 2026 isn't just about interest rates or home prices. It's about the gap between what people expect their money to do and what it actually does in today's economy. That gap creates frustration, hesitation, and a feeling of being stuck in between. And maybe the most important thing to understand is this: feeling stuck doesn't mean you're doing something wrong. In many cases, it means you're actually paying attention, you're thinking critically, weighing your options, and refusing to rush into a decision that could shape your financial life for decades. Owning a home is still possible, but the way you get there and the timing of it may look very different than it did before, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. It just means the definition of financial progress is evolving. The goal isn't just to own a home. The goal is to build a life that feels stable, flexible, and sustainable. And if you keep that as your focus, the decisions you make, whether it's buying now, later, or not at all, will start to feel a lot clearer.